Hello and welcome back to Losing the Boomer Blues. And I'm showing you my magnet. It is a cute little story. I hope you're enjoying it so far. It's flashbacks to 1967 and living in the now, 2017. So let's go ahead, come in here and visit with Mary. We're going to discover Vincent now. That's her son. Worried about his mother, Vincent phoned Grace to give her a heads up that Mary was showing signs of depression and that she had made an appointment with Dr. Klein. He also wanted her to let Jane and Lucy know about this. Concerned, Grace mentioned that she had noticed that all three women were feeling the blues, but Mary seemed to be more emotional than the other two. Understanding how protective Vince was of his mother, Grace promised to keep an eye on her. His devotion to her after his father's passing had been a blessing. Grace admired his steadfast compassion and love. Mary wasn't the only one who missed George. Vince had shared a close relationship with his father. During the summers when he was a youngster, he and his dad had often driven to Yosemite to spend a weekend together in the forest. They had camped out, hiked, enjoyed nature, and bonded during these trips. The excursions had become an annual father-son tradition. Vince missed spending one-on-one time with his dad. He often recalled their long talks around the campfire and the many times they had backpacked along Yosemite Creek, their favorite hiking trail. He remembered a heart-to-heart talk he once had with his father as a young adult regarding the mixed feelings he had had for his girlfriend, Fran. He felt out of touch with his emotions because he desperately wanted to make something of himself before making a love commitment. Every time he and Fran got too close, he put the brakes on. It seemed more than a crush, more than a friendship, but he was too scared to call it love. He recalled George saying, "Love is elusive and a bit unpredictable, but I got lucky the day I met your mother. Don't analyze it. Love has a way of sneaking up on you. It's best to go with the flow. If it's love, you'll know." One of the saddest days in Vincent's life was the day his father was killed. It was tragic on so many levels. He lost not only his father, but his confidant and best friend. Like his father, Vince had worked hard to achieve a law degree. He sometimes regretted not telling Fran long ago he loved her, but he hadn't wanted to rush things back then. He should have expressed his feelings. Things would have been different. She wouldn't have moved to Los Angeles to study environmental law, and he wouldn't have worked so hard to take over his father's practice. Regardless of the what-ifs, down deep inside, he knew that if something is meant to be, nothing can stop it from becoming reality. Without love, life seemed empty, so he managed to stay busy helping others as much as he could. That seemed to fill the void, but he was anxious for something more. Lucy. Lucy's walk home from yesteryears was a bit longer than Mary's. She lived on the corner of 45th Avenue and Seal Rock Drive. The house was across the street from the VA Medical Center, Fred's home away from home. When she arrived, she noticed Fred's 1966 purple VW van parked in the driveway. He had purchased it shortly before he was drafted into the Army in September of 1968. Being an auto mechanic, he kept it in tip-top shape. His pride and joy was now a rare classic. It had been on display at the annual Classic Car Show in Alameda every year for the last 2 decades. Fred loved it and babied it more than he did his shiny new Harley. Lucy loved it too, and was happy whenever Fred took her out for a spin. She would joke, "It's a blast from the past that was built to last, just like our marriage." He painted it purple to match the Purple Heart he had received. because both were important mementos from his past. Fred had apprenticed as an auto mechanic after he graduated from high school. He had attended a few classes at San Francisco State, fearing the draft, but he was 2 units shy from deferment and ended up being called to serve his country. He and Lucy were married 1 week before he left for boot camp. They were young, but they were in love, and nothing could stand in the way of that love, not even the uncertainties of war. Lucy had been on pins and needles after Fred left. She had worried that her soldier might not return home to her. She faithfully wrote letters every day and hoped that Fred would do the same. Since serving his country was his main focus, finding time to write letters every day wasn't possible. When he did find time to write love letters to Lucy, he tried to hide the human suffering he witnessed. But those letters were few and far between. Sadly, when Fred returned home from the war, Lucy felt she hardly knew him. War had changed him. The experience was horrifying for most soldiers, but for Fred, it had a lasting effect. The deep-rooted scars almost ended their marriage. Suffering from PTSD, he became easily angry. Sometimes his flashbacks caused him to become isolated and distant, even when they were together. Conflicts made him irritable, and family disagreements often put him over the edge. Lucy remembered how hard it had been for Fred to sleep at night when he first returned home. He had had frequent nightmares. Often, when he heard a plane flying overhead, he would become paralyzed with fear. If it wasn't for his love of surfing, he would have never been able to cope with his constant fear, anxiety, and guilt. His mind was totally clear when he was catching waves on his surfboard. When Lucy introduced her friend Judy to Bill, Fred's war buddy, she had hoped that double dating would bring Fred out of his shell. Every time they hung out with Judy and Bill, Fred loosened up. Sharing activities and conversations with another couple was therapeutic for both Fred and Lucy. Before that, his lack of desire in the bedroom had made Lucy feel rejected, and that brought about stress in their marriage. It seemed to her that Fred was just going through the motions when they were intimate. Once the two couples started double dating, Fred and Lucy began sleeping together more often, and although sex wasn't always part of their intimate experience, spooning and cuddling throughout the night was, and that strengthened their love for one another. Therapy and medication also played a big part in helping Fred cope with his PTSD symptoms. They never gave up trying to fix what war had damaged in their marriage. He battled PTSD every day of his life, even 50 years later. Time, unfortunately, didn't diminish Fred's haunting memories of the war. Fred was a hard worker. He often told Lucy that it would be a cold day in hell before he retired. He loved working with his hands, and especially owning and operating the neighborhood gas station. He was a skilled mechanic and had employed and trained many young backyard mechanics through the years. He still had a ponytail and a well-kept walrus mustache. He had a slight limp from a war injury, but nothing slowed him down. He was tall and lanky, and his blue eyes matched the sky that lit up Lucy's world. I'm going to stop here because the construction next door is getting rather loud, and we'll pick up from where we left off today tomorrow. I'll leave you with my website. It is www.marylonza.org, and you can also reach me. It'll be redirected through www.losingtheboomerblues.com. So either way works, and you can visit my website and look at some of my collages and maybe even purchase my book. Have a nice day. Ciao.